Have you ever got up, or I should say seen someone get up, to go and do a race, knowing before you've even started the race that you're not going to finish?
Well, you have now, because I've just DNF'd in a triathlon. I've just turned up, I've swum, I've biked, but the calf is no good, so I've not run.
But don't worry, there's a bigger reason behind it all. There is a master plan at play, let's say, so it absolutely wasn't a wasted race.
Good to know. My efforts were not wasted.
So what I plan on doing today is I'm going to take you with me to this race, which is a triathlon, and I'm going to talk about how I'm building my endurance from now until December for my 100-kilometer race, so that you can apply it in any race or distance that you want to achieve. It's going to be 5 different tips from the 7 tips that I did in the previous video, which I'll link here. Time to go now though, because it's 4:45 and I'm going to be late, and I do not want to be late.
Right, it's almost time to go. So this is what we're doing today, an Olympic triathlon. Although, like I said, I'm not doing the run, I'm just doing the swim and the bike. So I'm gonna bail out on the run. But that leads me to my first point in terms of endurance training and how you build safely. And I didn't mention it in the last video, but it's something that's really important, is don't ignore niggles, don't try and push through things. So I've been guilty in the past, I'm sure we all have, of training through things that you think, you know what, I can train through that. You can't, not if you want to build real endurance, and that's what's happening to me today. I'm making sure I'm staying safe, and I'm making sure I'm not doing the run because I've picked up this calf injury. So I'm doing what I can do and enjoying the day. I know that running style anywhere. I could see you a mile off. Keep going, mate. Keep going. That's warm out there, but I think you can agree I did rule number 1 to a T. No running for me. I just made sure I didn't aggravate the niggle that I already had by just turning up and treating this like a training session. Like, this race essentially was a swim bike for me, no run. Just seen Mikey out there, you may have seen the footage. So rule number 1, just really don't push through. The general rule I have is if it's between 1 and 3 in terms of discomfort when you're running or exercising, that's usually the discomfort of the exercise. But if you get to 4 or above, stop, seek treatment, sort it out, because pushing through will not work. And you'd rather stop for a week than have to stop for 2 months, right? That's my general rule of training, because we know, if you watch this channel regularly, consistency is king. What do you think of the t-shirt? I think that's not a bad t-shirt. I mean, considering I didn't actually finish the triathlon, but I paid the fee, so I get the t-shirt. But that actually, when I think about it, this is working really nicely. This kind of, you're coming on a day with me, but also the points are fitting in pretty perfectly. My second point about how you build endurance is you need to set process goals. If it's a long-term goal, like for example my 100k race, the UTMB race, that's 7 months away now. And if I were to train, let's just say I was to train exclusively for that, 7 months of that, there are things that happen in your training that you can't foresee. Of course, you try and mitigate any risk of injury, but if you've watched the channel for a long time, then I got hit by a car in 2019. Now, I couldn't have seen that on the day that I went out for the ride, and if I had have put all of my eggs in the Ironman Copenhagen basket, then I would not have done a single race that year, and it would have been pretty demoralising. And as it happened, I did a few races before I was hit by the car, so I felt okay about it. But the other really big benefit of having process goals in there, like races as you go, is that you get to see where you're at, benchmarks. They're not obviously going to be like that distance that you're going to race in the end, but for example, if you're training for a 100-kilometer race, I'm probably going to factor in a 50k race, might even go to 70, not sure about that yet, but I want some hurt in my legs, so I'm going to factor in races as we go along, and it will just tell me where I'm at. So some people call them process goals, some people call them B races, call them what you want, because ultimately running is about the joy of it, and it becomes pretty joyless if you're just training for one particular thing. and then it doesn't happen. I'm very excited, by the way, because we're just about to take these two out for some, well, we're gonna have coffee and cake, but they're coming with us. Let's go family coffee and cake. Look, we got them both. Oh, happy days. Right, we good?
We're good.
Tip 3 of how to build endurance and how to build it properly and safely is working backwards. So go with me on this one. Let's say, for example, I'm using my 100k race in December. What I've done is I've looked at when that is, the 100 kilometers, and I've worked backwards the distances I think that I need to be at certain times, factoring in, if you watch the first video, training blocks. So of course there's 3 weeks of work and 1 week of recovery and repeat. So all I do is I kind of look at, let's take for a marathon for example, in fact that's easier for me. So in that last training block before the taper, what I would do is I'd look and I'd think, well, I need to be at 35, 32 and maybe 30 or 29. Those are my 3 distances that I want to be at in my marathon long runs before my marathon, and then I'll have my recovery week and I'll do the same again, just building gradually as we go. So it's not working forwards. You don't go from now and you just start working and building towards your race. You actually go the other way and you start working backwards and factoring in all those process goals that we've talked about and making sure that it's safe and manageable. Okay, we're heading home because these two are getting hard to control. He's actually wrapped himself around a tree now. Seems glamorous, doesn't it? It seems like I'm sitting here on my own, but actually I've asked Mary to stand there and look after the dogs while I try and do that filming. This is point 4, by the way. Not just foam rolling, but just go with me on this. Oh! So tip number 4 is not foam rolling, and it's not strength and conditioning because... Hello? Oh, thank you for the kiss. So it's not strength and conditioning, it's everything that is not running. If you want to move up at the distances, if you want to truly build your endurance, you need to focus on everything outside of simply running as much as you focus on your running. Let me explain in a little bit more detail. Oh look, she's being all cuddly today. What I mean by everything that is not running, just think about it like this in fact. Do you think the best runners are the best runners because they just run? Actually, they're the best runners because they do the stuff that some people don't want to do. They invest in themselves. Every time I start trying to talk to camera, when he just, one squeak of the toy. So how do they invest in themselves? Well, first of all, they do the non-flashy things like the strength and conditioning, like the foam rolling, but they also do things that we can do, like they go and get regular tune-ups. So Mary and I invest in going to see a physiotherapist, getting dry needling once every month, whether we were injured or not, and that was a conscious decision because people sometimes would rather spend it on a pair of trainers or a flashy watch or even going out drinking with friends, whereas for 60 quid once a month, if you just get that little bit of a tune-up, someone to look at you, then you're keeping yourself consistently in the game, which is ultimately the aim of running, is staying running. But it's not just that. No, serious runners take their craft seriously, so they also spend time investing and learning in running drills to improve their form. They also make sure that they have a good stretch after every run, which I know a lot of runners neglect. And also, they follow a plan. And if you don't have a plan, if you're just out there running aimlessly because you're a beginner, that's okay. Let me tell you that I have a complete playlist on this channel. You're right there. A complete playlist on this channel for free training plans for every distance. So you can just get on there, they're completely free. I want everyone to have access to structure if they want it. So just go find one that suits your needs. Because ultimately, what will define you as a runner is not your running. It's all of the things that you do outside of the running, all of the time that you invest in yourself outside of the running. How many times do I say it? Consistency is key. It's the number one. Wow, what a day. I shan't lie to you, I'm feeling fairly fatigued after a week of waking up at 5 a.m. and then getting up at 4 a.m. for the race this morning. And it brings us on to the last tip I want to give you, and it's something that I feel very passionate about, and it's something that I feel is very important in your training, and it is tied in with the ego, and that is that when you're building your endurance, there are way more ways than you think to build your endurance, and everyone thinks just you have to naturally build a little bit each week or each block in terms of your distance, and that's just not true. For example, last year, and I say this all the time, Mary and I consistently from January till about May or even June ran a half marathon every weekend. We didn't go above that, but we ran a half marathon every weekend, and you know what? I saw the biggest gains in my running just purely down to that consistency every weekend. Was I building the distance up each time? No, I wasn't. But what my body was doing, it was just getting more and more and more efficient in the aerobic zones, because all of our runs were in the base zones. It was getting more efficient each week. So what I'd suggest is, and it doesn't have to be a half marathon, but I think pick a stretch goal, pick a distance for you that pushes you, but not too much, challenges you therefore, and that you think that you could do every weekend. And if you nail that, if you get that right, then you don't have to go from, for my example, half marathon to then 23k to 25k to 27k. You don't need to do it. We literally just topped out at a half marathon, but we did it so consistently every week that we had huge benefits, smashed all of our PBs. So there is clearly more than one way to build your endurance. You could even focus on speed work, you could focus on tempo runs. It doesn't always have to be about just going up distances. I'm going to keep this really easy here. I'm going to link 2 videos. The first one is the How to Build Your Endurance Part 1 that I did a couple of weeks ago, and the second one is a training plan for everyone. Whatever level you are, you can jump into this training plan and take yourself to the next level. So go and check it out. Hopefully I've convinced you to subscribe to the channel, but there is never going to be a hard sell from us. And stay tuned for Sunday. Let me tell you, it's looking like a good one already.